it is of defiance. A child of the Mahar caste, born in the world that does not see him as human. In a land that worships thousands of gods, the child is seen as untouchable. No temple will welcome him. No school will treat him equally. No well will allow his thirst. His fate is decided the moment he opens his eyes. But the fate did not know Bhimrao. His father, Subedar Ramji, a disciplined soldier, instills in him the weapons of the mind: education, reading, order, and self-respect. His mother, Bhimabai, with a quiet strength, tells him, "You are not less than anyone." Even as a child, Bhim dreams beyond walls. He asks why people are called impure. He questions why his touch is feared. And when no one answers, he starts writing his own. While other children play, Bhim waits outside classrooms. He sits on a gunny sack in the corner, denied even water from the common pot. But he listens, he learns, he grows. The British uniforms around him offer order, but no justice. His surname was Sakpa, a mark of untouchable identity. To shield his son from stigma, his father, Subedar Ramji, changed it to Ambedkar, after their native village, Ambawade. In the school records, it was later written as Ambedkar, a name chosen for simplicity, readability, and dignity. The young boy writes with chalk and hope. He walks miles for a book. He carries pain not as burden, but as purpose. The nation doesn't see him yet, but a storm is stirring in silence. A voice is preparing to rise, and in the quiet barracks of mouths under lanterns, he studies while others sleep. His world is a library, and he devours it like a starving man. Outside school, people refuse him water. Inside, they refuse him respect. But what no one could take from him was his will to learn. He once wrote, "Cultivation of mind should be the ultimate aim of human existence." This was not just a quote, it was a declaration. In the classroom of caste, Bhimrao Ambedkar turned operation into determination and exclusion into excellence. He wasn't just learning history, he was preparing to change it. After years of humiliation in the classrooms of Satara and Bombay, a moment of light broke through for young Bhimrao. In 1907, he cleared the matriculation examination from Elphinstone High School, the first boy from his community ever to do so. The impossible had been achieved. At the historic moment, his achievement caught the eye of a great social reformer, Chhatrapati Shahu Maharaj of Kolhapur. Shahu Maharaj, known as the Rajeshri, was a king who believed in the upliftment of the oppressed. He was moved by the brilliance of this young student. Chhatrapati Shahu Maharaj granted him a scholarship, ensuring that poverty would not block his education. This support enabled Bhimrao to take admission in Elphinstone College for higher studies. Later, his destiny crossed with another great benefactor, Chhatrapati Sayajirao Gaikwad, the ruler of Baroda. Chhatrapati Sayajirao was deeply impressed by Ambedkar's sharp mind and disciplined character. He offered a scholarship to Bhimrao to study abroad for the condition that Ambedkar would return to serve in Baroda state. In 1913, with this scholarship, Bhimrao left the shores of India for the first time. He arrived in New York, admitted to Columbia University. Here, he studied economics, politics, and law, and came into contact with the finest minds of the age. His professors recognized a rare intellect. John Davy, the philosopher, later remarked that Ambedkar was among his most brilliant students. Ambedkar forged friendships that would last a lifetime. Friends who admired his sharpness, his honesty, his unshakable dream for justice in India. Years later, Sayajirao Gaikwad would proudly say of Ambedkar, "Here is a man destined to bring light to millions living in darkness." Yet, destiny was not without struggle. When Ambedkar returned to Baroda, he faced cruel discrimination despite his foreign degrees. Humiliated and insulted, he realized that education alone was not enough to erase untouchability. Resolute, he returned to the United States again, this time with support of friends and well-wishers, to complete further research and strengthen his arsenal of knowledge. These scholarships, these acts of faith by Shahu Maharaj and Sayajirao Gaikwad did more than educate a single man. They opened the door to a revolution that would shake the very foundations of India's caste system. Baroda, 1917. Armed with degrees from Columbia University, Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar returns to serve the princely state of Baroda. He comes not as a subject, but as a scholar, not as a victim, but as a visionary. Yet, caste travels with him. More cruel than borders, more persistent than poverty. He searches for lodging. Door after door is shut. The hotels do not allow untouchables. The city has no place for his mind because of the body he was born in. At last, he finds a room in a Parsi inn. Under disguise, he hides his identity. He hides his name. But truth has a way of seeping through cracks. One night, a secret is exposed. A mob forms, shouting, threatening. Dr. Ambedkar, a Cambridge-trained, Columbia Polish, is forced to flee in the dark, like a criminal in his own country. What crime had he committed? Wanting dignity? Wanting to sleep under a roof without being cursed? The pain is not just physical. It is spiritual, psychological. A fire that doesn't burn skin, but identity. In the rains of Baroda, Bhimrao clutches his book to his chest. They are his only shelter, his only homeland. Humiliation tries to break him, but it only sharpens his resolve. He begins to understand education alone is not enough. Society must be rebuilt, law must be rewritten, and the soul of India must be awakened. Baroda was not just a city, it was a taste. And Babasaheb Ambedkar passed it, not by enduring silence, but by deciding that silence must end. He did not just walk away, he walked towards revolution. The rain-soaked streets of Baroda to the snowy walkways of Columbia University, Ambedkar crossed oceans, not for escape, but for enlightenment. In America, caste had no name, but inequality still had many faces. He studied not just law and economics, he studied justice itself. He walked among scholars, debated with philosophers, and questioned systems older than empires. At Columbia, he found books that spoke truth and professors who treated him as an equal. For the first time, he was not the untouchable. He was simply Ambedkar. He earned multiple degrees, wrote brilliant theses on finance and democracy, and learned that knowledge was power, but justice was the purpose. From Columbia, he went to London. Gray's Inn and the London School of Economics became his next battlegrounds. He studied the law of rulers, so he could rewrite it for the rule. He studied the British Empire. He prepared for the freedom of India's oppressed. He walked through ancient libraries, sat in quiet halls of learning, and dreamed of villages back home, where children like him still sat outside the classroom. While others saw foreign degrees as status, Ambedkar saw them as tools, weapons to fight ignorance, shields to protect dignity. He refused to become what caste had designed. Instead, he carved a new identity, but one built not on birth, but brilliance. When he returned, he did not return with pride. He returned with purpose. His education was not just for himself. It was for the millions who were still in chains. He once said, "Be educated, be organized, be agitated." In those words, live the voice of every oppressed child, every broken spirit waiting to rise. Columbia and London didn't just shape his mind, they lit the fire that would one day ignite a revolution. Bombay, the colonial city of trade and turmoil, Ambedkar returns not to resume life, but to redefine it. He does not pick up a weapon, he picks up a pen. He starts Muknaik, the leader of voiceless. In his pages, he writes what society fears, that caste is a crime, not a custom. He writes not with ink, but with fire. Every article, a wound open. Every editorial, a mirror held to a caste-blind society. The elite take notice, the oppressed take courage. He walks the streets of chawls and slums, listens to the pain of people long silenced. We are not your shadows, he says. We are your equals. He organizes public meetings. Crowd gathers, some to listen, others to threaten, but he speaks anyway, firm, fearless. His words carry what centuries tried to bury, the right to self-respect. His enemies label him dangerous. He takes it as a compliment. Education, praise, law, he merges all. His pen becomes a sword, and each article a strike against injustice. He fights not just for rights, but for awakening. He founds a Bahishkrit Hitkarani Sabha, the Society for the Welfare of the Excluded. It provides schools, hostels, and courage. It gives shapes to resistance. His office is a small rented room. His ambition, a just nation. He tells his people, you have nothing to lose but your fear. Bombay sees the rise of a new leader, one who speaks for the last in line. Dr. Ambedkar becomes a symbol not just of intellect but of organized revolt. The colonizers had rulers, the Savarnas had scriptures, the oppressed had now Ambedkar. A pen, a printing press, and an unbreakable will. That's how the revolution began. Mahad, 1927. A small town about to witness a massive awakening. Here, the untouchables denied water, not by drought, but by man-made hatred. Ambedkar arrives by thousands, not with weapons, but with the truth. The Chowda tank lay still, its waters clear and forbidden. Water is a right, he declares, and dignity cannot be denied. People walk behind him, barefoot, resolute. The march is silent, the meaning is thunderous. As he bends down to touch the water, centuries tremble. He lifts it in his hand, not just water, but history rewritten. That single act, so simple, so human, became revolution. The Parcast respond with rage. They purify the tank with cow dung and urine. But Ambedkar doesn't flinch. He says, we are not asking for charity. We are reclaiming our humanity. And then came fire. The Manusmriti, ancient book of caste laws, is burned publicly by Ambedkar. Flames rise, not just from the pages, but from the hearts of millions, finally unchained. He says, we will not live like slaves. We will live like humans. Mahar was not just a protest. It was a resurrection. From that tank arose a new identity. Bold, fearless, self-respecting. Ambedkar proved dignity doesn't flow from permission. It rises from resistance. The Mahad Satyagraha changed everything, not just for Dalits, but for India's soul. No bullet was fired, no temple entered. Yet, that day, history itself bowed to him. Nasik, 1930. The Kalaram temple, majestic, ancient, sacred. But to millions, its doors remain shut. You may live in this land, society said, but you cannot pray in his temples. Ambedkar stood at the gates, not to beg, but to demand. He was not alone. Thousands stood behind him. Men, women, children, exiled from faith by birth. The priest said, God belongs to the pure. Ambedkar asked, and who decides purity? Day after day, they march, chanting not mantras, but the mantras of equality. They were met with sticks, stones, and silence, but they kept returning. If God is locked behind caste, Ambedkar said, then even God must be questioned. Women in torn saris held their children close. Elders stood bleeding, yet unbowed. And Ambedkar stood at the front, unshaken. The temple's black doors loomed, heavy with centuries of denial. They did not open. But something else did. The people's consciousness. The Kalaram protest was not about entry, it was about belongings. We do not seek their approval, he said. We assert our rightful place. Ambedkar did not ask for permission. He claimed dignity as a birthright. The protest would go on for years. The doors remained shut. But the minds of millions opened. Kalaram proved one thing: faith without justice is hollow. He showed India that temples built on exclusion were no holier than prisons. In the land of gods, he chose to be voice of the forsaken, and once again he turned protest into scripture. Nirmata Jail, 1932. Gandhi on hunger strike. The nation holds its breath. But why was he fasting? Not for freedom, but to oppose separate electorates for Dalits. Babasaheb had fought hard for those electorates. For the first time, Dalits would have their own voice, their own representatives. Gandhi called it a threat to Hindu unity. Ambedkar called it justice delayed too long. Now Gandhi's fast became a weapon, and Ambedkar a target. If Gandhi died, Ambedkar would be blamed. If he gave in, millions would lose a future. The pressure was crushing. Letters poured in. Threats grew louder. The British remained neutral, watching. The Congress remained emotional, pleading. And Ambedkar remained alone, carrying the weight of a people. After days of turmoil, he signed the Pune Pact. The separate electorate were lost. Reserve seats were offered instead. I was forced to accept it, he said. It was not a compromise, it was a surrender. The pact was hailed by many as unity, but for Ambedkar, it was heartbreak in disguise. The Dalit voice was diluted. The chains now came with garlands. Newspapers praised Gandhi, but history remembered the cost. Unity that erases justice, Ambedkar said, is not unity at all. Even in defeat, he stood tall because he chose life for his people over pride. His pain became silent fuel. He returned, not broken, but sharper. The Pune Pact was a turning point, not of triumph, but of truth. Ambedkar learned. Sometimes the hardest battles are the ones fought alone. And though history called it a pact, for Babasaheb it was a scar that never faded. 1947, the British Empire was leaving. India stood on the edge of freedom. But freedom meant nothing if justice was denied. Who would build the foundation of this new nation? They chose Babasaheb Ambedkar, a man once shunned by society, now tasked with shaping its highest law. He entered the Constituent Assembly not as a representative of a caste, but as a symbol of conscience. Day and night he worked, debates rage, questions burn. But Ambedkar stood firm, anchoring each article in liberty, equality, and fraternity. We are going to enter a life of contradictions, he warned. We will have equality in law, but not in social life. He fought for universal adult franchise, for women's rights, for the right to education, for the right to dissent. Every clause bore his vision. Every word held the weight of centuries of struggle. And finally, after 2 years, 11 months, and 18 days, the Constitution of India was born. It was not just a document, it was a revolution written in ink. We must make political democracy a social democracy, he said. Otherwise, we will be betraying our own constitution. The assembly rose in applause. The world watched in awe. A Dalit, who was once denied water, had now given the nation its guiding light. He did not merely draft a constitution, he drafted the soul of modern India. In the grand hall of the assembly, Babasaheb did not speak for a people. He spoke for the future. And that future began with justice. He gave India its constitution, but the system gave him only resistance. Ambedkar, now law minister of independent India, drafted the Hindu Code Bill, a revolutionary law to give equal rights to women, right to divorce, right to inheritance, right to dignity in family life. But Parliament wasn't ready. Orthodox forces resisted. The same voices that praised him yesterday now ask him to wait. Delay after delay, debate after debate, the bill was buried in silence. For Babasaheb Ambedkar, it was betrayal. What use is freedom, he asked, if half the nation remains slave in their homes? Babasaheb Ambedkar knew that injustice was not limited to the scheduled castes and tribes. Millions of peasants, artisans, and laborers, today known as the other backward classes, were also trapped in poverty and caste discrimination. He urged Nehru's cabinet to appoint a commission under Article 340 to scientifically study their condition and grant them reservation. But the Congress leadership hesitated, fearing backlash from powerful upper caste groups. Saranam Gachami echoed across India. His revolution now complete, legal, social, spiritual, and yet he remained humble. My people, he said, have chosen a path of peace. In the twilight of his life, Ambedkar gave India one final gift, a path to equality that no regime could erase. His body was growing weak, but his mind still aflame. After embracing Buddhism, Babasaheb did not rest. He began writing a final gift to the world, the Buddha and his Dhamma. Each night, by candlelight, he wrote of compassion, reason, and liberation. He wrote not just as a scholar, but as one who had lived the pain of the oppressed. His health deteriorated rapidly. Diabetes, failing eyesight, exhaustion. But the mission never paused. I may not live long, he said, but I must complete my duty. December 6th, 1956. In his Delhi home, Babasaheb passed away in his sleep. The flame had gone, but it left behind a torch. News spread across the nation. Millions wept. Dalits mourn a father. India mourn a maker. His body was placed in Bombay. Lakhs gathered for his final journey. It was not a funeral. It was a revolution wrapped in saffron and blue. No statues could hold his fire. No words could hold his weight. Even in death, he was not silent. His writings, speeches, and legacy continue to awaken generations. Children began learning his name. The poor found a voice in his words. The oppressed found courage in his path. Ambedkar just did not live in his book. He lived in every protest for dignity, in every law that stood for equality, in every dream of a caste-free India. His final message was clear: educate, agitate, organize. Not once, not for a season, but forever. His flame still burns in every heart that refuses to bow. Time may pass, generations may change, but Ambedkar's light still burns. Not just in statues, not only in speeches, but in struggles, classrooms, and silent prayers. Every girl who dares to study, every worker who demands fair pay, every child who asks why is carrying forward his flame. He lives in books and in street protests, in courtrooms and in community halls. The constitution he wrote is not a relic. It is a living promise and a daily battle. Across India, his portrait watches over schools, his quotes hang in libraries, and his name echoes in slogans of justice. But more than anywhere, Ambedkar lives in the minds he liberated. The mind that refuses to bow, the voice that questions, the hand that rises even in fear. From Dalit students excelling in universities, to villagers holding public office, to women demanding rights, Ambedkar breathes in every courage. His mission continues, not through a single leader, but through millions rising with purpose. From Bhim Army marches to rural literacy drives, from courtrooms to cinema, from hashtags to hunger strikes. His message, justice for all, by all, is still our unfinished work. The battle is not over. Caste still lingers. Inequality still hides behind glass, walls, and polite words. But the dream lives on, not as a memory, but as a movement. Opens a book, Ambedkar lives. Every time a girl steps into a school, Ambedkar rises. Every protest for dignity, every demand for equality, every voice that says no more carries his soul. Ambedkar is not in the past. He is in the every moment he refuses to bow. So educate, not just with books, but truth. Agitate, not with violence, but with courage. Organize, not for hate, but for justice. The Constitution is not just a paper. It is a battlefield. It is a promise we must defend. Stand up. Speak out. Raise your voice for the unheard. Be the light in dark corners. Be the ink that writes a fairer law. Be the dream that breaks all chains. You don't need to be famous. You need to be fearless. You don't need power. You need purpose. Because you are Ambedkar. I am Ambedkar. We all are Ambedkar. When we choose justice over silence, we become the revolution. When we walk the path of equality, we carry his flame. The story is not over. It begins again. We are you, the children of the revolution that Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar ignited. We are not just followers. We are the living legacy of a man who chose books over chains, reason over rituals, justice over jati. We are the footnotes to the constitution he wrote, the answers to the questions he raised. Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar's story did not end in 1956. It lives on. And every girl who goes to school despite resistance, in every worker who demands dignity, in every outcast who dares to dream. He told us, my final words of advice is educate, agitate, organize, not as a slogan, but as a way of life. We are Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar when we speak truth to power. We are Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar when we break the silence of caste. We are Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar when we uplift those around us, not just ourselves. Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar did not ask us to worship him. He asked us to walk with courage. He asked us to destroy the chains of inequality with knowledge, unity, and action. This is not just history, it is a call to action, to reject Manusmriti in every form it takes, whether in schools, workplaces, temples, or homes, to see liberty not as a gift but a duty, to remember that democracy is not just voting but living with dignity every day. In his memory, we must become the torch bearer of the unfinished revolution. He lit the flame. Now we must keep it alive. We are Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar when we choose equality over ego, when we write new stories of justice, when we rise together, never again to bow. This is our vow. Not to build statues, but to build a just society. Not to memorize his speeches, but to embody his spirit. Not to celebrate a man, but to complete his mission. We are Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, and our time is now.